A scream pierces the dawn, sharp and fleeting, swallowed by the wind that claws through the village's broken archway. It is 11:57, and the air is thick with frost and fear, the scent of damp wool mingling with the sour rot of unburied bodies. A frozen stream lies still, its surface a cracked mirror reflecting a sky heavy with ash-grey clouds. By its edge a woman kneels, her breath clouding in the cold, her fingers trembling as they trace the worn beads of a wooden rosary. Her name is Edith, a healer's daughter, her hands stained not with blood but with the crushed green of yarrow and the weight of grief. She whispers in Anglo-Saxon, a prayer half forgotten, her voice barely rising above the distant toll of a bell, its bronze throat choked with frost. The sound is faint, mournful, as if the bell itself knows the kingdom is unraveling. This is no ordinary sickness. The plague moves like a shadow, silent and ravenous, leaving black roses blooming on the skin of the living. The villagers call it God's wrath, a curse for sins they cannot name, though their whispers falter in the face of its hunger. Edith has seen it take her mother, her hands once steady with mortar and pestle, now still in a shroud. Her brother followed, his laughter silenced, his body carted to a pit beyond the church. Even the Lord's son, a boy of 16, with eyes like summer, lies in the manor, his fevered cries cutting through the night. The streets, once alive with the clatter of looms and the chatter of children, are empty now, save for the creak of a cart, its wheels grinding over frozen ruts as it carries the dead to their unmarked grave. Edith rises, her cloak heavy with dew, brushing against nettles brittle with frost. She carries a satchel, its leather cracked but heavy with herb zero, feverfew, a desperate offering against the unseen thief. Her steps are slow, deliberate, as she moves through the fog, the village a ghost of itself. The thatched roofs sag under snow, the hearths cold, the air sharp with the tang of unwashed bodies and fear. She passes the baker's hut, where the scent of rye once warmed the morning. Now only silence lingers, and a single loaf, half-eaten, lies dusted with frost. The church looms ahead, its stone walls pitted by time, its wooden doors scarred by desperate hands. Inside, a tallow candle burns, its flame guttering in the draught, casting shadows that dance like spectres across the altar. Edith lights it, her fingers trembling, the wax dripping like tears onto the stone. She dreams of a sparrow, small and trembling, escaping through a cracked window, its wings a fleeting promise of freedom. But the window is barred, the glass clouded, and the sparrow's song is lost to the wind. The villagers are few now, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow with dread. They gather in the churchyard, clutching iron amulets, muttering of curses and divine judgment. An old man, his voice cracked like the earth, speaks of a traveller who came before the plague, a man with a cloak of foreign weave and eyes that did not meet theirs. He carried a satchel, heavy with something unspoken, and left before the first fell ill. Some say he was a merchant, others a heretic, his name lost but his shadow long. Edith listens, her heart heavy, her hands tightening round her rosary. She knows the truth is deeper, buried in the soil of this kingdom, in the sins of its lords or the prayers of its forgotten. She has heard the whispers of a relic, a shard of bone said to hold power, hidden in the manor's locked chamber. The Lord, weakened but alive, guards its secret, his voice a rasp as he forbids its mention. Yet Edith feels its pull, a weight that tugs at her like the tide. She moves through the village, her boots sinking into mud that smells of decay, her breath catching as she passes the manor's gates. The iron is cold, rusted, its bars like the ribs of a dying beast. Inside, the Lord's Son cries out again, a sound that cuts through the fog, sharp and human. Edith pauses, her hand on the gate, her satchel heavy at her side. To enter is to risk everything, her life, her hope, the fragile thread of her faith. To flee is to abandon those who remain, to let the plague claim the last of this land. The choice is a knife, its blade unseen but sharp, cutting into her resolve. She thinks of her mother's hands, steady even in despair, and of the sparrow, its wings beating against a window that will not open. The bell tolls again, softer now, its note swallowed by the wind, as if mourning what is already lost. Edith steps forward, her cloak catching on a thorn, tearing a small wound in the fabric. The manor looms, its windows dark, its walls heavy with secrets. The air grows colder, the fog thicker, as if the kingdom itself breathes its last. She hears a sound, not the bell, but a low hum, like a chant from a time before stone churches, before crosses and kings. It comes from the hills, where the old paths wind into shadow, where the traveller was last seen. Edith's fingers tighten. On her rosary, the beads smooth as bone, and she feels the weight of a choice that is no choice at all. The plague is not just a sickness, it is a reckoning, a mirror held to a kingdom's soul. She steps toward the manor, her candles flame a fragile light in the gathering dark, knowing the next choice will lead her deeper to the relic, to the hills, to a truth that may break her or save what remains. A raven's harsh call splits. The silence, its black wings slicing through the moonless dark. The year is 1087, and a Norman castle squats over a valley, its stones scarred by the plague's relentless hunger. The air is heavy, thick with the acrid bite of burning pitch and the sour reek of unwashed bodies, a futile shield against an unseen killer. Inside the keep, a scribe named Godric hunches over a scarred oak table, his quill scratching at parchment, each stroke a trembling defiance of the fear that gnaws his bones. His fingers, stained black with ink, shake not from the cold, but from the dread that coils tighter with every cough echoing through the castle's hollow halls. The flame of a single tallow candle sputters, its wax dripping like tears onto the chronicle he writes, a fragile record of a kingdom crumbling into ashdot. The plague spares no one. It takes the strong, the pious, the innocent, its black sores blooming like cruel stars on fevered skin. Godric, once a monk cloaked in the silence of a cloister, abandoned his vows to serve a lord who now lies dying, his breath rattling in a bed draped with moth-eaten velvet. The castle, once alive with the clink of goblets and the soft strum of a lute, is now a labyrinth of shadows, where servants shrink from doorways and guards clutch iron amulets, their eyes darting to corners where the dark seems to breathe. Rites of the village below, its thatched roofs sagging under snow, its hearths cold, its streets silent save for the creak of a cart hauling bodies to a pit beyond the church. He smells the sour tang of fear, sees the offerings dried lavender, a child's woven bracelet piled at the church door, unanswered by a god who feels distant, silent. The villagers whisper of the plague's origin, a trader's cart, heavy with foreign goods, or a cursed relic brought to the castle's chapel, or perhaps a sin buried deep in the king's court, its weight pulling the kingdom down. Quill falters as he recalls the trader, a man with a cloak of coarse wool and eyes that never lingered long. He arrived in autumn, his cart rattling over the valley's rutted paths, his voice soft but strange, speaking of distant lands where the air was warm and the seas gleamed like glass. He left before the first frost, before the first villager fell, clutching their chest as black marks spread. Some call him a merchant, others a heretic, his name lost but his shadow long. Godric wonders, his heart heavy, if the man's goods carried more than spices, if they carried death itself. The Lord, his voice a rasp through fever, forbids talk of the relic, a shard of bone locked in an iron chest within the chapel. Yet its presence lingers in Godric's mind, a weight like the chains that bind the castle gates, a secret that hums beneath the stone. The halls are quiet now, save for the Lord's cough and the distant wail of a mother in the village below. Godric moves through the keep, his steps soft on the rushes strewn across the floor, their scent of stale herbs a faint echo of better days. He passes tapestries, frayed by time, their threads depicting hunts and feasts now faded, like the kingdom itself. A guard, his face gaunt, nods to Godric, his hand never leaving the amulet at his neck. "It's closer tonight," he mutters, his voice low, as if the plague might hear. Godric nods, his throat tight, and continues to the chapel, where the air is colder, sharper, heavy with the scent of myrrh and wax. The iron chest sits in shadow, its lock rusted but unyielding, a guardian of truths Godric cannot name. He kneels, his fingers brushing the cold stone floor, and whispers a prayer not for salvation, but for courage. The candle on his desk, left burning, flickers in his absence, its flame dancing as if stirred by an unseen breath. Outside, the raven caws again, its cry sharper, a warning that cuts through the fog rolling in from the valley. Godric rises, his heart pounding as he hears footsteps, soft, deliberate, approaching his chamber door. Is it the plague come to claim him, its touch cold as the grave? Or is it something older, something the kingdom buried long ago, rising now to speak its name? He grips his quill, the feather trembling, and writes one last line. The truth lies not in the sickness, but in what we hid from the light. The footsteps pause, the door creaks, and the candle's flame gutters, casting the room into shadow. Godric holds his breath, the parchment beneath his hands a fragile shield, knowing that whatever stands beyond the door will lead him deeper into the castle's heart, into the relic's secret, into a reckoning that may consume them all. The raven's cry fades, swallowed by the night, and the castle grows still, its stones holding their breath. Godric's chronicle lies open, its ink still wet, a testament to a kingdom teetering on the edge. The footsteps resume, softer now, retreating into the dark, leaving only the echo of their weight. Godric exhales, his candle steadying, its light a faint promise against the gathering gloom. The valley beyond the castle waits, its secrets buried in the snow, its paths leading to answers that may save or damn them. The Lord's cough grows fainter, the village quieter, and Godric knows the next dawn will bring a choice to face the relic, to seek the trader's trail, or to let the plague write the kingdom's final chapter. A torch gutters in the pre-dawn chill, its flames spitting embers that die on the frozen earth. The year is 1152, and in Immersion village, the air is sharp with the sour reek of sickness and the faint sweetness of apples rotting unharvested. A blacksmith named Elfric stands at his forge, its fire long cold, his hammer still, its iron head pitted by years of striking steel, his hands broad and calloused, once shaped swords for a king's levy. Now they tremble, not from cold, but from the weight of a shroud he wove for his daughter, her small body wrapped in coarse linen, her laughter silenced by the plague. The forest looms beyond the village, its frost-rimed trees clawing at a sky bruised with dawn's first light. The crunch of Elfric's boots on the frozen ground is the only sound, a solitary rhythm in a world where silence cuts deeper than any blade. The plague has swept through like a scythe, leaving the village a husk of itself. The square, once alive, with peddlers hawking wool and mead, is now a graveyard of footprints, their paths leading nowhere, swallowed by snow. Elfric's breath clouds in the air, each exhale a fleeting ghost of the life he once knew. His wife, Mildred, kneels by, a frozen well, her fingers tracing the frayed rope that hangs limp, a symbol of their tethered, breaking lives. She has not spoken since their daughter's death. Her silence louder than the church bells that no longer ring, their priest lying dead, his last sermon unfinished, his words scattered like ash. The villagers, those few who remain, huddle in their huts, their faces gaunt, their whispers sharp with fear. They speak of a monk, a shadowed figure who came before the sickness, his satchel heavy with relics and lies. He vanished into the hills, they say, leaving behind a curse that blooms black on the skin, a pestilence that spares no one, neither the pious nor the proud. Elfric feels the weight of his survival, a guilt that presses like stones on his chest. He sees his daughter's face in every shadow, hears her laughter in the wind that howls through the village's empty lanes. The forge, once his sanctuary, is a tomb of cold iron, its bellows still, its hearth dark. He thinks of the monk, his cloak stained with travel, his eyes avoiding the light. The villagers claim he spoke of a holy relic, a bone of a saint carried from a distant shrine. But Elfric wonders, his heart heavy, if the monk's satchel held something darker, truth the village cannot bear. The elders, cloaked in wool and dread, forbid talk of the hills where the monk was last seen. Yet rumours persist of a hermit, ancient and wild, who lives among the oaks, his voice a whisper of forgotten gods, his knowledge the key to the plague's source. Elfric's wife lifts her eyes from the well, her gaze meeting his, and in that moment he sees not blame but a shared sorrow, a plea to act where she cannot. He lights a torch, its flame hissing in the damp air, casting shadows that dance like spectres across the village's crumbling walls. The forest calls to him, its trees skeletal, their branches reaching like hands from a grave. Elfric grips his hammer, its weight no longer for forging but for protection, its handle worn smooth by years of labour. He steps beyond the village, the snow crunching under his boots, the air growing colder, sharper, as if the forest itself breathes a warning. The path narrows, winding through gnarled oaks, their bark slick with frost, their roots twisting like veins beneath the earth. The wind carries a faint chant, ancient and unyielding, not of Christian prayer but of something older, its cadence pulsing like a heartbeat. Elfric's torchlight flickers, revealing a single footprint in the snow not human, but clawed, its edges sharp as if carved by intent. His breath catches, the hammer heavy in his hand, as he wonders what creature wore, what truth awaits him. The forest closes around him, its silence a weight, its shadows shifting like memories he cannot grasp. He thinks of the forge, of the swords he shaped, their blades gleaming with purpose, now useless against this unseen enemy. He thinks of Mildred, her fingers still tracing the well's rope, as if it might pull back the life they lost. The chant grows louder, a low hum that seems to rise from the earth itself, and Elfric feels the pull of the hills, where the hermit dwells, where answers might lie. His torch sputters, its light frail against the dark, and he wonders if he walks toward salvation or doom. The clawed footprint is not alone. Others join it, a trail leading deeper, toward a clearing where the trees part and the sky opens, cold and unyielding. Elfric pauses, his heart pounding, the hammer a cold comfort in his grip. "Who are you?" he whispers, not to the hermit, but to the plague itself, to the shadow that has stolen his world. The chant fades, replaced by the soft creak of branches, the distant howl of a wolf that feels like an echo of his own grief. Elfric steps forward, the torchlight catching a glimpse of stone in the clearing a marker. Ancient and weathered, its surface carved with symbols that do not belong to the church. The hermit's lair is near, he knows, hidden in the hills, where the monk fled, where the plague's truth might be buried. His daughter's face lingers in his mind, her shroud a chain that binds him to this path. The torch burns low, its flame a fragile thread in the gathering dark. And Elfric knows the next step will lead him closer to the hermit, to the relic, to a reckoning that may shatter what little remains of his heart. The forest watches, its silence heavy, its secrets waiting, as Elfric moves deeper. The clawed footprints guiding him toward a truth that may consume him whole. Rain lashes a crumbling stone bridge, its arches slick with moss, each drop a needle piercing the silence. The year is 997, and in a Saxon town nestled in a river's bend. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and the acrid bite of lie, as washerwomen scrub linens stained with the black sores of death. A young widow, Sinberg, stands at the river's edge, her hands raw and cracked, her woolen cloak sodden against her shoulders. Her eyes, shadowed with grief, fix on a distant pyre across the water, its flames spitting a sickly glow that dances on the current like a warning. The wood smoke stings her throat, mingling with the faint rot of the town's decay. A kingdom once alive with the clatter of carts and the chant of morning prayers, now hunched under a sky too heavy with despair. Sinberg's fingers, once nimble with a weaver's shuttle, now tremble as they thread needles for shrouds, each stitch a wound, each prick of blood a reminder of what she has lost. The plague moves like a shadow, silent Butravenus, its black marks blooming on the skin of the living, a cruel Mokoyoff, the roses that once grew by the church. Sinberg has seen it take her husband, his broad hands stilled, his laughter drowned in fever. The town, unseverbrant with the creak of looms and the laughter of children, is a husk, its streets slick with mud, its hearths cold. She moves through. The rain, her boots sinking into the earth, the sound muffled as if the world itself holds its breath. The washerwomen, their faces gaunt, scrub in silence, their hands red from lie, their eyes avoiding hers. They whisper of a stranger, a merchant with thighs like coal, who came in the autumn, his voice soft with tales of distant lands, where the sun burned gold and the seas whispered secrets. He took bread from Sinberg's hand, his fingers brushing hers, and left before the first frost, before the first villager fell, clutching their chest as the plague took root. Now she wonders, her heart heavy with a secret. Did her kindness, a single loaf shared in pity, invite this doom? In the town's hall the elders gather, their woolen cloaks damp, their voices low as they debate God's judgment. The airs of stale ale and fear, the oak tables scarred by years of feasting, now a stage for their dread. It is his wrath, one mutters, his beard flecked with spittle, for sins we cannot name. Sinberg lingers in the shadows, unnoticed, her breath shallow as she listens. She knows their words are hollow, their prayers unanswered. The church, its timbers warped by rain, stands silent, its bell tolling a single fractured note that hangs in the air like a wound. She clutches a sprig of rosemary, its sharp scent a faint shield against the despair that clings to her like damp. Wool, her husband's voice echoes in Hermond, a memory of his hand on hers, weaving tapestries that told of heroes and hunts, now frayed and forgotten. She sees his face in the pyre's glow, his ice bleeding, and wonders if she, too, carries the plague's mark beneath her skin. Sinberg steps onto the bridge, the stone cold under her feet, its arches trembling as if mourning the town's fate. A lockagate bars the way to the hills beyond, its iron rusted, its bars like the ribs off a dying beast. The key, cold and heavy, hangs at her waist, its weight a symbol of choices unmade, of paths she has not dared to take. The rain foreshowed her, each drop a drumbeat, urging her forward or warning her back. She thinks of the merchant, his satchel heavy with goods or perhaps something darker. A relic whispered about in the hall, a shard of bone said to hold power, now hidden in the Lord's manor. The elders forbid its mention, their eyes darting to the hills where the merchant fled, where the old paths went into shadow. Sinberg's fingers tighten on the rosemary, its leaves bruising, releasing a scent that feels like a prayer. What did you bring us? She whispers, not to the merchant, but to the plague itself, to the shadow that has stolen her world. The river churns below, its waters dark, carrying leaves and ash from the pyre. Sinberg feels the pull of the hills, where the merchant's trail leads, where answers might lie in the shadow of fancient stones. She thinks of the tapestries she wove, their threads telling stories of courage, of women who faced the dark and emerged whole. Her hands, raw and bleeding, are no longer those of a weaver but of a survivor, her heart a loom where grief and hope are entwined. The gate looms before her, its lock unyielding, but the key at her waist is a promise, a choice that could lead to salvation or deeper into the plague's embrace. She steps closer, the rain soaking her cloak, the rosemary's scent fading in the downpour. The bell tells again, its notes softer, as if the church itself weeps. Sinberg's fingers brushed key, its metal cold as bone, and she feels the weight of a truth that leads beyond the gate. In the hills where the merchant vanished, where the plague shard might beat, the rain slows, each drop a soft echo on Theebridge, and the pyre's glow fades across the river, leaving only shadows. Sinberg stands alone, the key heavy in her hand, the hills calling like a distantiant, ancient and unyielding. She sees a vision, a single thread, golden and unbroken, stretching from her past into the unknown, a tapestry yet to be woven. The gate creaks in the wind, its iron groaning, as if urging her towed aside. The merchant's eyes, dark and fleeting, linger in her memory, and she wonders what he left behind, relic, a curse, or a truth that could unravel the kingdom's fate. The path beyond the gate is shrouded in mist, its stones slick with secrets, and Sinberg knows the next step will lead her closer to Thehills, to the manor, to a reckoning that may break her or mend what remains. The rosemary falls from her hand, sinking into the river, its scent lost. Ask grips the key and faces the dark. A tattered banner snaps in the wind, its colours leached to grey, clinging to a splintered pole like a dying man's plea. The year is 1213, and in a borderland village of the Welsh marches, the air is thick with the stench of damp straw and the bitter tang of death. A boy, Wulfric, no older than 12, crouches in a stable, his breath shallow, his small hands clutching a carved wooden horse, its edges worn smooth by a father's love, now lost to the plague's unyielding grasp. The stable's timbers creak, heavy with rain, and the air is cold, sharp with the scent of mold and fear. Outside, the village lies silent, its once lively streets where sheep bleated and the mill wheel's rhythm marked the days now, choked with a quiet so deep it feels like a wound. Wulfric's heart pounds, each beat a drum against the dark, as he presses the wooden horse to his chest, its grain a fragile tether to a world that no longer exists. The plague is a merciless hunter, its black sores blooming like cruel flowers on the skin of noble, serf, and child alike. Wulfric has seen it take his father, a tanner whose hands smelled of leather and earth, now wrapped in a shroud stained with fever's mark. His mother, a midwife whose steady hands once brought life, lies still in a cot, her breath a faint rattle, her voice silenced by the sickness that devours the village. The streets are empty, save for the creak of a cart hauling bodies to a pit beyond the church, where the dead are piled, their faces hidden, their names forgotten. Wulfric remembers his mother's stories, whispered in the glow of a rushlight, of a holy spring hidden deep in the forest, its waters said to wash away sin and sickness. The villagers, their faith eroded by the sight of rotting corpses, scoff at such tales, their prayers brittle as the frost that coats the fields. Yet Wulfric, small and unseen, feels the spark of a boy's desperate hope, a flame that burns despite the cold dot at dawn. He slips through the village gate, his cloak heavy with mist, its wool scratching his skin as he moves into the forest. The trees loom, their branches creaking like whispered warnings, their bark slick with rain and time. The air grows colder, sharper, as if the forest guards its secrets with a jealous hand. Wulfric's boots sink into the soft earth, each step a struggle against the mud that clings like grief. He hears the distant howl of a wolf, its cry slicing through the silence, a sound that feels like the plague itself stalking him through. The shadows, the wooden horse, smooth from his touch, is his only anchor, a symbol of a father who carved it by firelight, his knife steady, his laughter warm. Wulfric clutches it tighter, his fingers trembling as he pushes deeper, the forest closing around him like a fist. The ground softens, the air thickens, and he feels the weight of is not human, not beast, but something older, watching from the dark. The path narrows, the trees leaning closer, their branches skeletal, clawing at the sky. Wulfric's breath clouds in the chill, each exhale a prayer he cannot voice. He thinks of his mother, her hands still, her stories now a fading echo. The holy spring, she said, lies where the oaks part, where light breaks through the canopy like a promise. He finds a trickle of water, gleaming faintly under a shaft of pale dawn, its surface rippling as if stirred by an unseen hand. Wulfric kneels, his cloak pooling in the mud, and dips his hands into the water. It is cold, ordinary, its touch a shock against his skin, and the weight of his hope begins to crack, like ice under a hammer. He whispers, please, to thee, spring, to the forest, to a god he fears has turned away. The wooden horse slips from his fingers, landing in the mud, its carved eyes staring up, unseeing. Behind him, a shadow moves, not a wolf, but something heavier, its presence thick with the kingdom's forgotten truths, a hum that vibrates in the earth, ancient and unyielding. Wulfric freezes, his heart a drum against his ribs, the springs, water dripping from his hands like tears. He thinks of the village, its hearths cold, its people broken, and of the monk who came before the plague. His satchel, heavy with relics, his eyes avoiding the light. The villagers whispered of him, of a bone he carried, a saint's relic or a cursed thing, now lost in the hills where the old gods linger. Wulfric's mother believed in the spring, in its power to heal, but the water is silent, its promise empty. He rises, the mud clinging to his knees, and retrieves the wooden horse, its weight a reminder of what he cannot lose. The shadow moves. Again, closer now, its breath a faint rustle, like leaves stirred by a wind that does not blow. Wulfric grips the horse, his small hands steady, and turns toward the sound, his eyes searching the dark. Who's there? He whispers, his voice swallowed by the forest, but the answer is only silence, heavy and alive. The forest holds its breath, the spring's ripple stilling, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and something older, like stone and bone. Wulfric stands, the wooden horse his only shield, the shadow's presence a weight that presses against his chest. He thinks of his mother, her life fading, and of the village, its silence a grave. The path beyond the spring leads deeper, to the hills where the monk vanished, where the hermit is said to dwell, his voice a whisper of truths the church forbids. The wooden horse feels heavier, its carved lines a map of a boy's courage, a father's love, a mother's hope. Wulfric takes a step, the mud sucking at his boots, the shadow trailing him like a memory. The forest watches, its branches creaking softly, as if mourning what is to come. The spring lies behind him, its waters cold, but ahead, the hills loom, their shadows hiding a truth that may save his mother or break his heart. Wulfric moves forward, the wooden horse in his hand, the hum of the forest rising, calling him to a reckoning that waits in the dark. Candlelight flickers on a stone wall, its frail glow trembling like a heartbeat in the dark. Shadows dance like ghosts across the pitted surface, weaving stories of a forgotten hall. The year is 892, and in a Mercian stronghold. The air is sour with the reek of crushed herbs and the heavy despair of a convent-turned tomb. A young nun, Aliana, moves through the cloister, her bare feet silent on the cold, damp floor. Each step a whisper against the weight of death. Her hands clutch a psalter, its leather cover worn thin by years of prayer, its pages soft as sorrow. The convent, once a sanctuary where chants rose like birds and tapestries glowed with threaded light, now lies silent, its sisters falling one by one to the black sickness, their breath stolen by a plague that knows no mercy. Aliana, spared thus far, feels her survival like a stone around her neck, heavy with guilt, sharp with fear. The plague is a silent hunter, its black sores blooming on pale skin like ink spilled on parchment. Aliana tends the sick, her hands steady. Despite the dread that coils in her chest, she sees their rise clouded with fever, pleading for a mercy that does not command wonders if God has turned his face away. The infirmary smells of wax and myrrh, mingled with the sour temps of unwashed bodies and the faint rot of hope. She hears the scratch of a quill, the abbess recording names in a ledger, each stroke a tolling bell for the dead. The sisters whisper of a cursed relic, a shard-off bone brought from a distant shrine, now locked in an iron chest within Thechapel. Its presence hums in Alina's mind, a shadow behind the prayers she recites. The convent's bell, cracked and mournful, tolls at dusk, its note swallowed by the fog rolling in from the fens, thick and cold, as if the earth itself mourns. Aliana kneels before a wooden cross, its edges smoothed by centuries of touch, her fingers tracing its grain as if it might speak. She sees a Vishnu white dove, its wings beating against a locked door, its soft cries trapped in the wood. The Amag haunts her, a symbol of freedom she cannot grasp, of a soul caught in a world unraveling. Her psalter feels heavy, its prayers hollow against the weight of thieving. She thinks of Sister Ethelbald, whose voice once led the chants, "No still." Her hands folded in a shroud, Alina's own hands, stained with Yarrowan grief, tremble as she binds a fevered brow, the cloth damp with sweat and despair. The sisters, those few who remain, move like ghosts, their wimpler stark against their gaunt faces, their prayers faltering. Whispers speak of Amonk who brought the relic, his cloak heavy with dust, his eyes avoiding light. He spoke of a shrine beyond the sea, where the bone was said to heal, but left before the first sister fell, her breath stolen in the night. Aliena wanders, her heart a knot of fear and faith. If the relic is a blessing or a curse, if her survival is a gift or a judgment, the cloister is a labyrinth of shadows, its stone walls cold, their surfaces slick with damp. Eliana moves through it, her psalter clutched like a shield, the air thick with the scent of myrrh and Thefan creak of timbers settling under the weight of time. She passes a tapestry, its threads frayed, depicting a saint whose face is lost to mildew, a mirror oft convents fading hope. The abbess, her voice a rasp, forbids talk of that frolic, her eyes darting to the chapel where the iron chest sits, its lockinyalding, its contents a mystery that pulses like a wound. Aliana feels its pull, a tide that draws her closer, though her feet falter on the cold stone. "What have we done?" she whispers, not to the sisters, but to the dove in her vision, to the God who seems silent. A faint cry echoes from the infirmary, sharp and human, pulling her back to the living, to the fevered hands that reach for her, to the eyes that beg for salvation. The night deepens, the fog pressing against the convent's walls, its chill seeping through the cracks. Aliana steps into the chapel, the candlelight casting her shadow long and thin, like a thread stretched to breaking. The iron chest looms in the corner, its surface pitted with rust, its lock a silent guardian of secrets. She kneels again, her psalter open, its pages fluttering in a draught that feels alive. The dove's wings beating her mind, louder now, their rhythm a call to act, to seek the truth hidden in the bone. She thinks of the monk, his hurried steps fading into the fence, and of the sisters, their voices lost to the plague. Her survival is a chain, binding her to a choice stay and tend the dying, or seek the relic's truth, a path that may lead to salvation or damnation. The bell tolls again, its note softer, as if weary of its own grief, and Aliana rises, her bare feet cold against the stone, her psalter heavy in her hands. The chapel is silent, save for the drip of waxen, the faint hum of the wind outside, a sound that feels like a chant from a time before crosses, before cloisters. Alina's fingers brush the iron chest, its metal cold as bone, and she feels the weight of a truth that lies beyond its lock. The dove in her vision is still, its wings folded, but the door it beats against is no longer locked. It creaks open, revealing a path into Theta. The cry from the infirmary comes again, softer now, a reminder of thelives that hang by a thread. Aliana steps back, her psalter falling open to absum of deliverance, its words blurred by candlelight. The fog outside her thickens, the fens whispering of the monk's path, of the hills where answers might lie. She knows the next dawn will bring a choice to open the chest, to follow the monk's trail, or to let the plague claim what remains of her faith. The candle flickers, its flame a fragile promise, as Aliana steps into their cloister shadows. The dove's wings silent, the relic's truth waiting to boyne veiled. A frozen river glints under a pale winter sun, its cracked surface a shattered mirror reflecting a sky bled of warmth. The year is 1184, and in a Welsh hamlet nestled in a valley's shadow, the air is heavy with the scent of ash and rotting grain, a bitter shroud over a world undone. A tanner named Rhys stands at the village's edge, his hands scarred from years of scraping hides, his eyes fixed on the horizon where mountains loom like silent judges, their peaks dusted with snow. His cloak, stiff with frost, catches the wind, and his breath clouds in the chill, each exhale a fleeting ghost of the life he once knew. The plague came without warning, a thief in the night, carried perhaps by a peddler's cart or a pilgrim's whispered prayer. Now the hamlet is a graveyard of empty hearths, its streets silent, its people broken. Rhys grips a rusted dagger, its blade dulled but heavy with purpose, its weight a reminder of the blood it has never spilled but may yet demand. The plague is a merciless reaper, its black sores blooming like cruel ink on the skin of the living, sparing neither the nor the defiant. Rhys's wife, Gwenllian, whose voice once filled the mead hall with songs of heroes and harvests, lies still in their cot, her lips stained with the mark of death, her eyes closed as if guarding a final note. The village, once alive with the clatter of looms and the laughter of children, is now a husk, its thatched roofs sagging under snow, its fires cold. Their survivors huddle in the church, their whispers sharp with fear, their fingers clutching amulets of iron and bone. They speak of a standing stone in the hills, ancient and pitted, said to guard a pact older than the cross. Rhys feels their words like a blade, for it was his hand, years ago, that carved a cross into that stone, defying the old ways in a moment of youthful faith. Now the guilt twists in his gut, a knife that turns with every memory of Gwenllian's voice, every echo of the hamlet's lost warmth. He moves through the village, his boots crunching on frozen mud, the air sharp with the tang of decay. The church looms, its timbers warped, its door scarred by desperate hands. Inside, the villagers kneel, their prayers faltering, their eyes darting to the hills where its stone stands. It's the old gods, an old woman mutters, her voice cracked like the river's ice, angry at the cross you carved. Rhys says nothing, his fingers tightening on the dagger, its hilt cold against his palm. He thinks of Gwenllian, her songs now silent, her hands that once wove rushes into basket snow still. He sees her face in the frost, hears her voice in the wind, and wonders if his act of faith, his chisel against the stone unleashed this curse. The villagers' whispers grow louder, their fear a weight that presses against them, urging him toward the hills, toward the stone that stands like a sentient lover, the hamlet's fate. Rhys steps beyond the village, the snow dusting his cloak, each flake a soft accusation. The path to the stone is treacherous, winding through gnarled oaks that creak like mourners, their branches heavy with frost, their roots twisting like memories beneath the earth. The air grows colder, sharper, as if the hills themselves breathe a warning. A crow's causelesses through the silence, its cry an accusation that echoes in Rhys's heart. He grips the dagger tighter, its blade a dull promise of protection, though Henno's no steel can cut the plague's shadow. The forest closes around him, its solence thick, its shadows shifting like the ghosts of those he has buried. He thinks of the peddler, a man with a cart heavy with goods, whose eyes lingered too long on the church before he vanished into the hills. The villagers spoke of a relic, a bone or a stone carried in his satchel. But Rhys wonders if Thetru, cursed, lies closer in the cross he carved, in the faith he thought would save them. The standing stone looms ahead, its surface epitted and cold, its edges worn by centuries of wind and worship. Rhys kneels, his breath clouding, his scarred fingers tracing the cross he carved, now weathered and faint, a wound in the stone's ancient skin. The wind shifts, carrying a low hum, as if the stone itself speaks, its voice a chant from a time before. Churches before kings. Rhys feels the weight of his guilt, heavy as the dagger in his hand, and whispers, "What have I done?" The words are ray-swallowed by the hills, unanswered, but the hum grows louder, vibrating in the earth, a call to face what he has wrought. He rises, the dagger a cold anchor, his cloak catching on thorns that draw no blood but sting like memory. Thustone stands silent, a symbol of a kingdom's fragile balance between faith and forgotten gods, its shadow stretching toward the hamlet below. The crow caws again, its wings a dark blur against the pale sky, and Rhys feels the pull of the path beyond. The stone, deeper into the hills where the peddler fled, where answers might lie. He thinks of Gwenllian, her voice a thread that binds him to this journey, her silence a chain that will not let him rest. The snow falls heavier now, dusting stone, softening the cross he carved, as if the earth seeks to erase his sin. The hum in the air grows faint, but it lingers, a promise or a threat, urging him forward. Rhys grips the dagger, its blade catching the last of the sun's light, and takes a step, the path narrowing, the oaks closing in. The hamlet lays behind him, its hearths cold, its people waiting, and Rhys knows the next dawn will bring a reckoning not just with the stone, but with the peddler's trail, with the truth that may heal or destroy. The wind carries a faint note, like a song half remembered, and Rhys moves into the dark. The stones shadow at his back, the hills whispering of a past that refuses to stay buried.